The involvement of Mycobacterium tuberculosis actually predisposes the need to certain clinical features. Usually, when we are discussing the pathology, there are certain features of this infection, as it is primarily an arthritis of the knee joint, which arthritis means inflammation. There will be definitely inflammation and swelling around the knee joint, and it will have certain features which are more pathognomonic of tuberculosis of the knee. These involve early clinical feature is, as you know, that almost 60 to 70% of the tuberculosis is pulmonary TB or pulmonary tuberculosis. But if it's extrapulmonary, usually it's called as, it's actually the reactivation of a latent disease. The disease was there, patient got cured, or for example, if somebody gets infected with pulmonary TB and the body's immune system is good enough, that gets caught up, and actually gamma is formed and the TB is contained in the lungs, then that means that patient may not have any symptoms of tuberculosis, but that means that infection will remain there inside the lungs, and it can get reactivated at any other point of time in life. For example, that patient may eventually develop on diabetes or HIV later on, and when his or her immune system drops, that is the time that this reactivation of a latent infection can occur. Therefore, the most common form of dissemination of this latent infection is through the hematogenous route. That is, the bacteria is there inside the body, it's latent, it's inactive. Once the immunity of the person drops, as a result, it gets reactivated and spreads through the blood. And once it spreads through the blood, this hematogenous dissemination leads to the other multiple joints can be involved. This goes to the spine as well, and as well as the joints of the spine, as well as the joints of the hip, as well as knee. And in knee, as you know, it's actually a rotating modified hinge joint. But as all these joints are actually covered by a joint capsule, and then inside you have a synovial membrane and a synovial fluid in it. Therefore, when it goes through this hematogenous dissemination, these Mycobacterium tuberculosis starts to reside in the synovium, and there they start to multiply. Therefore, it's actually the reaction or arthritis which develops is actually a synovial reaction to the mycobacterial infection. And once that has happened, there is inflammation of the synovial membrane and actually leukocyte proliferation and infiltration over there. This leads to edema as well as increased fluid retention in the knee joint. Then it starts to affect the subchondral bone. First, initial attack is on the synovial membrane, then it starts to affect on the subchondral bone. Once it starts to involve the subchondral bone, this usually involves typical cavitatory kind of lesions which develop, and eventually it goes into the bone. And once the bony arthritis or osteomyelitis starts, this can mimic a picture of a chronic osteomyelitis with bacterial seeding. And then it continues and eventually may lead to juxta-articular osseous focus. Usually this results in that whenever, despite treating the articular TB, the focus does remain somewhere around the knee joint, and it can reactivate later on. And this is there's a vicious cycle of latency, reactivation, and reactivation. And this as a result, initially it's very difficult to diagnose, but once you diagnose it, it's even sometimes difficult to treat as well, because these Mycobacterium tuberculosis may remain latent for a quite long time and then suddenly gets deactivated whenever that patient's immunity drops to a certain level. And once the synovial membrane gets congested, edematous, and studded with tubercles, this is the point where the patient starts to have symptoms. Symptoms may be related to the knee joint, may be related to the generalized symptoms as well, because remember, it's a systemic disease. It will not only present with the localized symptoms which are involving the knee joint, but also the generalized symptoms as well, such as fever, chills, weight loss as well, because they will also be present. And as it is a bloodborne or it is hematogenous dissemination, this may involve other areas of the body as well. That, for example, tuberculosis can go into the brain as well, or other areas of the body. This may involve GI tract or even areas such as a muscle as well. Now, once the advanced stage has occurred, that is, supposedly it stays in the same joint and it remains a monoarticular arthritis. That means it will continue to proliferate. There will be synovial reaction, subchondral bone will get inflamed, there will be infiltration of leukocytes into the subchondral bone as well as the cartilaginous tissue. There will be edema, swelling, and then once this stage has started, this leads to tuberculous process, which affects the osteoarticular tissue and eventually leads to granulation tissue formation. These are called as the granuloma formation or granulomatous changes, which can be seen on the synovium, on the bone, as well as the cartilage. Whenever you open a joint which is infected with tuberculosis at an advanced stage, the first thing which you see is actually whitish plaques, which can be seen, multiple whitish plaques in the knee joint. These are usually the tuberculous granulomas, which is actually the caseous necrosis which has occurred of the tissue, of the normal tissue, which has actually accumulated in form of tuberculous granuloma. Why this happens? Because as the Mycobacterium tuberculosis multiplies, it causes certain areas of focal necrosis where the tissue has become necrotic. It will erode the articular margins and articular cartilage will be eroded, and then subchondral bone will be exposed. From then onward, this Mycobacterium will go into the subchondral bone and destroys the bone. From then, it involves the cruciate ligament, periarticular tissue, capsule, and ligaments. So, an important point is to understand is that the infection can start in the synovium, but it will not be contained by the synovium. It will not remain in the synovium. It will spread to other areas like cartilage, subchondral bone, and once it's involved the subchondral bone, this means the whole joint line is involved, and that will further spread to cruciate ligaments, meniscal, other ligaments which are actually surrounding, whether intra-articular or extra-articular ligaments as well. So it's kind of you can call it that tuberculosis literally eats up from inside, and that is how it spreads. It's continuously creating this necrosis, an area of focal necrosis leading to granulation tissue and leading to caseous necrosis inside, and gradually spreading from involving initially the soft tissues, then the bone, and then spreading outside towards the joint as well. Osseous lesions include tuberculous abscess. Once the subchondral bone has been penetrated, it will mimic or follow a path of chronic osteomyelitis, where there are cold abscesses. Cold abscess means indolent abscesses, that abscess is there is a dead necrotic tissues there, but as the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, those mycobacteria which have formed that abscess also die along with the process due to the lymphocytic infiltration as well. Therefore, the dead material is contained in the bone, and it can act as a nidus of infection later on, but although it's not actually causing any symptoms. Therefore, this kind of cold abscesses is usually found by the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It involves usually in the region of subchondral bone. It may involve in the region of epiphyseal bone or even the metaphyseal region as well. And at times it's very difficult, because if, for example, it's the tuberculous abscess which is in the metaphyseal region, if it's indolent abscess, then it's becomes difficult to actually differentiate from the chronic osteomyelitis as well, or chronic osteomyelitis of another bacteria which has a very low virulence. Therefore, usually it's that is why it's kind of when a patient presents with monoarticular arthritis, and to differentiate it from tuberculous arthritis from other diseases, at times it becomes quite challenging, because a history, examination, labs, they mimic other diseases as well, and it's very difficult even at times. And when you see in the literature, you see different case reports, even at times the Monto test and quantiferon TB cold test was all negative, and then eventually they have to go for some form of a genetic assays in which they have to come up with whether it was tuberculosis or not.